Coming up.
Launch.
Water flows on Mars.
Launch.
Moon Express signs a contract.
Launch.
Wallops repairs their pad.
And we talk about Moonspike, a Kickstarter campaign
Launch.
to send a payload to the moon.
Anniversary launch.
Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins right now. And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 8.29 for Saturday, October 3rd, 2015. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Ariane, also joined by Space Mike for the Space News segment. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to give a huge shout-out to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are the people who've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. If you'd like to find out how you can help to crowdfund the shows of Tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. If it seems like I'm speaking fast, the reason for that is we had a boatload of launches this last week, and we start off with the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which launched Monday, September 28th at 04:30 Coordinated Universal Time. Here's some footage.
3, 2, 1, 0, +1, +2, +3, +4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And there you go. So, like I said, that was a PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, that took off from the, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, the Satish Dhawan Space Center, which is on India's east coast. Rocket itself is about 145 feet tall, and at the bottom there you can see there are 6 solid rocket boosters. This was the 30th consecutive successful mission for the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. It is it was carrying Astrosat, which was India's first space observatory. So good job, India. Now that space observatory, Astrosat, has 4 X-ray science instruments and an ultraviolet telescope. It's going to survey the galaxy for black holes and measure intense magnetic fields generated by neutron stars, which sounds totally awesome. So, neutron stars. All right, moving right along, China.
China again with a.
I know. God, that launch cadence is insane.
They're doing a really
Wow.
great job with a Long March 3B launch at 2313 UTC Tuesday, September's. I didn't write it down. September something else. So cool. Tuesday, well, given what Ben said about September 28th was Monday, so I guess September 29th was Tuesday. This was from the Xichang Space Center in southwestern China's Sichuan province. This is be 4 of 35 global, I'm so sorry. What was launched was a satellite, a telecommunication satellite, and this was 4 of 35 to provide global navigation coverage by 2020 is the entire idea. China intends for this system to be an alternate to the U.S. Air Force GPS network. Also an alternate to Russia's GLONASS?
GLONASS, yep.
Thank you, constellation. Meanwhile, Europe is working on their own worldwide satellite navigation called Galileo. India and Japan are developing regional systems.
Yeah.
Yay! So
taking button, taking names. That's what China's doing.
Yeah.
We're going to head it on over to Space Mike, and he's going to talk about Ariane space.
That's right. So as India launched on Monday and China on Tuesday, Ariane Space launched on Wednesday, September 30th at 20:30 Coordinated Universal Time, and they launched 2 communication satellites into geostationary orbit. The first one is for Argentina. This is Arsat-2, and right here's the video of the launch. Let's watch this.
Allumage de CAP, décollage.
Very cool. Ariane 5 launches are always very awesome.
It's become my trademark to call it the rumble in the Amazon jungle, and it really is. It's the mighty Ariane 5.
Mute that, Dutta. It is the rumble in the Amazon jungle. He gets me with that every time.
It is the rumble in the jungle. These two communication satellites are really cool. The first one is Arsat-2, and this is the second geostationary communication satellite for Argentina. And the other satellite is the Sky Muster for Australia, and this is actually providing internet service to kind of remote regions in Australia. The bush and the outback and several other places where they don't have access to fiber optics. So being able to have satellite broadband internet access will be very helpful to the country, and they're very excited about it. Although I have no idea what Sky Muster actually means, so I think that's a question for Lisa Stojanovsky, but very cool launch. And speaking of more launches, we have a little bit more news from Russia about what they have recently launched. So passing it back over to you, Ben.
All right, continuing our launch coverage, Russia launched a Soyuz-U with a Progress vehicle up to the International Space Station. Here's the launch coverage itself.
The engine ignition has started. T-minus 3, 2, 1. Engine start and liftoff. Liftoff of a new Progress resupply ship bound for the International Space Station.
That took off Thursday, October 1st at 16:49 and 40 seconds, Coordinated Universal Time. As we mentioned, that's a Progress M29M, which is classified as the 61P cargo resupply craft to the International Space Station. So all that is basically, the first one's like the vehicle itself, and the second one is the mission number to the International Space Station. The bottom of that vehicle had 4 solid rocket boosters that separate shortly after launch. It docked at 22:52 Coordinated Universal Time, which is about 6 or so hours after its initial launch. This is the 61st Progress resupply flight to the International Space Station, bringing 3.1 tons of cargo. It refueled the station's service module with 4,277 pounds of propellant, and then it also brought up 2,041 pounds of water and 2,042 pounds of oxygen. Here's some just epic footage of it, what?
You said 2,042 pounds of oxygen.
That's wrong. I may have added a digit there. That would be 242 pounds of oxygen. Thank you for catching that. The internet would have burned me alive had I let that go. They probably still will. And here you can actually see as it's docking to the International Space Station. So there was that. Plus, Mike, what?
One other thing I needed to correct you on is earlier you said that the Soyuz rocket launched with 4 solid rocket boosters. They're actually liquid boosters. So before the internet chops your head off for that,
Oh, they are liquid boosters. Yep, I wrote it. You were right. All right, so there you go. You're welcome. I got the first one of the show. Moving right along, Atlas V, you're up.
Yay!
More launches. That's right, more launches.
There was an Atlas V launch Friday. So we've gone through the entire week at this point. Friday,
we had one every single day of the week. Monday,
6:28 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or 10:28 Coordinated Universal Time from Cape Canaveral. We've got some footage of that.
3, 2, 1, 0. RD-180 ignition. And liftoff. Liftoff of the 100th United Launch Alliance rocket. The Atlas V is carrying Morelos 3 for Mexico's Ministry of Communications and Transportation and Lockheed Martin Commercial Launch Services. Morelos 3 will deliver advanced mobile telecommunications throughout Mexico.
Awesome. See, I don't have to tell you anything else because he already said everything for me.
And you're welcome.
This is again a communication satellite providing a mobile L-band communications for Mexican national security, civil, and humanitarian efforts. Communications for like disaster relief, emergency services, and people very specifically for people living in remote parts of Mexico. Mexico's got quite the terrain, so we have a lot of people living in a lot of remote areas, and this way, God forbid, they should have an emergency or disaster that they can get communications going. This is the third of 3 spacecraft built under the Mexican Satellite System, or MEXSAT initiative, to modernize the country's communications infrastructure. And Morelos 3, yay. I said all my things now.
And the Structure 1701 in the footage said that was a gorgeous launch. I'll add that, just as a video nerd, that initial shot on the pad where they tilt up with the vehicle, like looking up.
Brilliant.
It was an absolutely beautiful shot. I love that shot. I thought it was gorgeous. Let's hand it back over to Space Mike. Okay, so we finally, that's all the launch footage for the week.
Goodness.
There you go. We got through the launches. But this was a huge huge news week for space geeks. Space Mike, what did NASA announce? And if you didn't hear this, you've heard this somewhere. Everyone's heard this.
I even heard this on the 6 o'clock news. So
exactly.
It was everywhere. It was everywhere. So NASA has officially confirmed that in the summer months on Mars that there's actually some flowing water. And it's creating these streaks on Mars. And this picture here doesn't really do it very much justice, but if you look really closely to kind of the base of that mountain in the middle, you can see some of those dark streaks kind of flowing down towards the wider part in that canyon in between those two mountains there. And with this whole discovery, when they first started noticing it was about in 2010, or 2010, excuse me. And with this, there was a lot of problems with it being liquid water because the temperature on Mars is below freezing, has an extremely thin atmosphere, and there shouldn't be any liquid water on Mars. However, the streaks would go away in the winter months on Mars, and what they're assuming is whatever these things are were going back underground, or it was some sort of weird anomaly with like sand streaks or something like that. But the way that they figured it out, and they were able to use a lot of the instruments on some of the orbiters that are orbiting around Mars right now, is that this water actually has a lot of salt. And with all of this salt that is there, it's able to keep it in a liquid form even though the temperature is below freezing. And this is kind of the same concept like in the winter when they sprinkle salt all over the roads to make all of the water melt so that you can continue to drive on it. And this is just a really cool discovery because not only is there a lot of this salt water there, to have liquid water flowing beneath the surface of Mars and a little bit in these streaks in the summer months, but with that, the exciting possibilities that there might be living microbes. The whole thing goes that if we can find water anywhere, there's probably life nearby. And so this is a really exciting announcement. Even though we've been seeing this for a long time, it's great that NASA has officially announced that yes, this is liquid water and here's the data to support it. So very exciting, and hopefully there will only be many more discoveries in the future. And what I'm hoping for is that we can bring some stuff to hopefully survive on Mars, although there's lots of people that don't want to contaminate it. So that's a whole nother argument for another time. But this is some very, very cool news and very exciting. So very happy about that. But speaking of liquid water on, or at least water on other celestial bodies, I'm going to pass it back over to Ben, who's talking about a company who recently signed a contract to go and get some of that water.
And that was a great segue, which I'm going to destroy. In the chat room, was brought up, you're welcome. Space Mike is the creator of Amazing Segways, and I am the destroyer of Amazing Segways. The chat room brought up, hey, didn't we find water on Mars before? Yeah, we have found water on Mars before. This is flowing liquid water, and that is a big difference from what we found before, which was kind of chunky, icy, frozen-y water. So that's kind of the key differentiator here. All right, as Space Mike mentioned, Moon Express has signed an agreement with Rocket Labs Limited to launch their lunar lander on the moon. This is a pretty cool thing. So we've brought Rocket Labs on the show before talking about what they're doing with their Electron rocket system. Well, Moon Express is going to be launching the MX-1 lunar lander spacecraft on that Electron rocket. They announced that on a press release that came out October 1st. They're going to be doing 3 launches. The first 2 will happen in 2017, we hope, and then the last one at a unspecified later time. And the launches can happen either in Rocket Lab's launch site in New Zealand, or an American range. So it may happen over there, it may happen here, not sure yet, but 2017, not that far away. So now for those who don't know Moon Express, Google Lunar X Prize team. So they could be working if we extend, I believe you have to extend the X Prize to make it to those dates, but if they, chances are they will, assuming I have that information correct, chances are they will. And then if they do, good chance that, I mean, this could be one of the winners for the Google Lunar X Prize of trying to send a rover to the moon, a private rover to the moon, tooling around on the moon, sending high back imagery back. This is the technical term of what the GLXP, Google Lunar X Prize is, tooling around on the moon and sending imagery back. That's what it says in the documents. So yeah, really cool stuff from, what? No, Mike, go ahead. He raises his head. So, you can't see this. I can see it on my screens, but he's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I guess this means that there's now 2 teams that have officially announced a launch contract, which means that unless the other teams announce a launch contract soon, only those teams are still going to be in the running after the end of this year, right?
I would assume so. You know, what we really should do is bring someone from the Google Lunar X Prize back on to talk about where we're at with the Google Lunar X Prize. You know, should we bring Leo back on?
If only we knew someone.
If only we knew people that were part of the Google Lunar X Prize. Yeah, well, why don't we let's bring Leo back on, Leo and gang back on, and have them talk about where they're at and what it's looking like. I think it's actually a good follow-up episode. We haven't done that for a little while. Moving along.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, that's my segue. That's the entire segue you get from me.
That's awesome. So, all these launches have to happen. What?
Way to destroy that segue, Ben. Speaking of destroying things.
Oh! Speaking of destroying things.
All right, that's fine. We'll go with that. As those of you who have been following the space industry for a little while now and are liking to watching launches, there was a bit of a launch mishap last year around this time, October 28th, where well, here, show the picture. It's terrible.
That's what it looks like now.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what it looked like then. Goodness. October 28th, 2014, Orbital Sciences Corp. There was an Antares rocket mishap.
It looked a little like this.
Okay, glad you have other pictures, I guess. It was the third resupply mission to the International Space Station for Orbital Sciences Corp. At the time, and we are happy to say that major repair work has been completed at NASA's, this of course, it was at Wallops, NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, Launch Pad OA. I keep saying AO in my head, and
it's
I don't
zero
really
A
know. It's
because
zero
of
A?
hangar AO. That's why
that's why. Okay, so Launch Pad 0A. There we go. So Orbital ATK is hoping to resume cargo resupply service with the Antares launch vehicle to the International Space Station for NASA from this launch pad. They are possibly doing a hot fire later on this year, 2015, and hoping to fly from this pad early 2016. Some have said March, early 2016.
Sure.
That would be interesting. But back in May of this year, there was actually some dispute over who was going to pay for all of these repairs, and blah, 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 quibble,
Space
quibble,
Mike
quibble.
paid.
Oh, what?
Space Mike, he just paid for all the repairs,
Oh,
took care
I'm
of it out of
what
pocket.
is going on? It ended up to be basically an even split, about 5 million, goodness, per from NASA from the state of Virginia, I nearly said California, and Orbital ATK. So there you go. Major repairs are done. That's awesome. Hopefully,
just
hot
need a
fire
rocket.
later on. Exactly.
Just need a rocket.
Well, you know, we'll just anyway.
Speaking of rockets,
We'll go with that.
Blue Origin has successfully tested, or at least done several testing, on their BE-4 engine, approaching their critical design review. And this is not a full-up test, this is just different tests of different components of it, such as the pre-burner and the igniter. And they have so far done 100 different stage tests, and we do have a picture of some sort of test, although I'm not sure if this is just a pre-burner test or if that's the BE-3 engine test. But anyway, this is what Blue Origin is put out, so we're just going to assume that it has something to do with the BE-4.
it's what they put with their press release. So I'm assuming that, I mean, I suppose they could have put a different image with the press release.
I believe that is the, the pre-burner.
Yeah, they're just doing component tests, is my understanding, right?
Yes.
They don't have the whole thing together yet. Yeah.
Right, and the other test that they've done is of the regeneratively cooled thrust chamber, where they actually cycle the fuel through the outside of the nozzles to keep it nice and cool when it's burning. And they've done some of the injector element tests, and it doesn't necessarily give a lot of the data that they have gotten from this. It says that they have collected a lot of data since there's been about 100 tests. But they still have a lot to go, and their hope for this is that they're going to be able to have a rocket engine that will be able to deliver 550,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. And not only will this be used on Blue Origin's orbital rocket that they will be building and launching from Cape Canaveral, but this will also be used on United Launch Alliance's future Vulcan rocket. And on that rocket, it's going to be used in a 2-engine configuration. don't know enough data yet about Blue Origin's orbital rocket to know if they will just use one engine or multiple engines on their first stage of their orbital rocket. But in any case, progress is moving right along with the BE-4 engine, and they might be a lot closer to having that engine ready to replace the RD-180 even on the Atlas V. So we'll see how things go, but of course, Blue Origin being as secretive as it is, we're just going to have to wait and see and be surprised whenever they decide to share any more information with us. So that's very, very cool, and moving right along.
All right, thank you, Space Mike. All right, we're going to take a quick break. That was the last one, right? Yeah, Blue Origin.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick... Well, there's just so much news this week. I cut off...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that goes in the next segment.
Yeah,
so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've been talking a long time, for years now, about eventually kickstarting a space program and how that might be interesting. Someone is... It's not us, but someone is actually doing it. And we're going to talk about a kickstarting a rocket program. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Films on some expectation. This girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get started with this main topic, I did want to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are the people who've contributed $5 or more to this specific episode. We are a crowdfunded show, so every single dollar helps. And you can find out more information on our crowdfunding campaign over at patreon.com/TMRO. Speaking of Patreon, if you are a patron of Tomorrow, you received an email this last week because Patreon's entire database got swiped. Basically, they were hacked, and your email address, your password, and a bunch of your information, but not your credit card information, was taken by bad, nefarious people. They kind of played it down a little bit in their email. I'm not sure I fully agree with how they approached the email itself. They kind of like, yeah, your credit card information wasn't taken care of. Change your Patreon password. And, okay, that's true. You should definitely go in and change your Patreon password. But I'd also like to give the added security of if you ever use that password anywhere else in your life, change it everywhere that you used it. Because now other people have that, and they can use your email address and just that password that they have and start using it if you used it on Facebook, your banking account, or anything else. So it's kind of a big deal that this actually happened. And, you know, my apologies to all of the citizens of Tomorrow. This sucks. I'm very happy they didn't get credit card information, but I want to make sure that your identities are safe and that your accounts are safe, and then you are safe as well. So hopefully it doesn't become a big deal. Hopefully it's just a password and that they can't get through any of the encrypted data. But yeah, definitely something to do. Go change your password, and there you go. All right. Also, before we get to our main topic, there's a go to the other camera for a second. There's right there. There's a space shuttle on the desk. Boop, booped its nose, which is slightly abnormal for us. That is Space Shuttle Atlantis, which is the favorite and best orbiter of all time that has ever been built, ever, of the entire fleet. Today was its anniversary of its first launch in 1985, and as a little added bonus, because it's its anniversary birthday launch date, here's some footage of that.
10, have go for main engine start, T-minus 6, we have main engine start, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Liftoff of Atlantis. A new orbiter joins the shuttle fleet, and it has cleared the tower.
Go Atlantis. That was STS-51J back when they did the really weird numbering system to try to deal with shuttle flights that went out of order. This was, like I said, the first Atlantis mission, and it was deploying a dedicated mission Department of Defense satellite known as the Defense Satellite Communication System, or DSCS-3. I know, right? This was 3rd of October, 1985. Atlantis was in space for 4 days, 1 hour, 44 minutes and 38 seconds. I should say it was in flight for that long. And it traveled a total of 1,682,641 miles, which for everyone else that's not in the US, that's 2,707,948 kilometers. I do miss shuttle launch coverage. There was nothing quite like it. You know, don't get me wrong. We needed to retire the vehicle. A side-mounted design is not a very great design, as we've shown more than once. But man, just look at how beautiful that footage was. It was gorgeous taking off the pad. Yeah, I do partly miss the space shuttle. So speaking of the space shuttle, I don't know how to segue this. So, yeah, we've been talking a lot about on the show for the last couple of years, would you say? About crowdfunding a space program, because we're a crowdfunded show, and I can definitely see the benefits of where crowdfunding helps and where it can completely change a show. It completely changed our show. And I got thinking, you know, wouldn't it be cool if someone crowdfunded a space program, or if we crowdfunded a space program so that we could kind of have a layer of transparency, so you could see the whole process. Because right now you don't get to see a lot of it, right? The space agencies are very protective of their brand. But a crowdfunded space agency, you don't have any of those problems. Enter Moonspike. If you go to Kickstarter.com right now, you search for Moonspike, you will find basically this. This is their plan. This is, they're looking to raise $1 million US. It's actually in pounds, so whatever the conversion rate comes out to, it's just under $1 million US. They're going to send a full-scale rocket to the moon, and they're going to send a little lunar impactor, what they're calling a Moonspike. Actually, Dutta, it's the little thing sitting on the table is the thing that they're sending down. That guy right there. That is the Moonspike. That's what they're going to be sending down to the surface of the moon. That essentially will be attached to the third stage of the vehicle, which I think we have a picture of that as well. That's a rocket. Okay, so there's the whole vehicle, right? So they're looking to build that. There's the third stage. That whole third stage weighs 147 kilograms when it's fueled. And that Moonspike sits on top of that, and then it will jettison down and impact the moon and kind of be shoved into the moon. A little bit like the old L-Cross impactor mission. Emery Vax Headroom, who we've had on the show. It's a little bit like that. And the neat thing is, it's all, much like the L-Cross mission, it's going to transmit. I keep saying L-Cross, but I shouldn't be using acronyms, and I don't remember what L-Cross stood for.
Me neither.
Yeah, someone in the chat room will remind us what L-Cross stood for. Then
Vax probably will.
Yeah, is he in the room?
He was earlier.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So lunar crater reconnaissance on some surface.
All right, close enough.
L-Cross. So yeah, so they're looking to do a Kickstarter campaign, looking to fund it. Now,
Lunar Crater Observation and Sensing Satellite. Thank you, TARS.
Oh, thanks, TARS. That was awesome. What's your opinion? So just like our crowdfunding, what's your opinion of the mission thus far?
I think it's interesting. You know, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I don't know if they'll get there. They've got 29 days to go. I believe.
Just started, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, they just opened up yesterday, I think.
Something like that. And some of the levels are already full because they have some early bird sort of things, which is kind of cool. I personally, I like the idea and I like the enthusiasm, and I wouldn't mind participating in that just because of that. But when I sort of sit back and say, okay, well, what does my money actually get me?
Sure.
It gets me some. So
the rewards aren't set up correctly, you think?
No, they're fine, just not necessarily for me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure, that makes
sense. It reads similarly to there was another project about getting your DNA or something like that, also sort of drilled into the moon, and I just, that doesn't say anything to me. It doesn't do anything for me.
So less inspiring than like the Google Lunar X Prize missions?
Yeah, to me, but that's just me. That's my own personal opinion. I don't find any fascination in me having some sort of pictures of me on the moon, or DNA on the moon, or baby bottles from mine on the moon. Like, that doesn't speak to me personally.
Is there a baby bottle reward level? That'd be kind of awesome.
No, but I'm just saying, like, even if it was a physical thing of mine,
sure.
You know, my hairbrush or toothbrush or anything along those lines, it doesn't.
Doesn't speak to you.
It really doesn't.
Okay, that's
even ashes of my, supposed dead whoever who wanted to always go to the moon or anything like that. That doesn't say anything. Which
is funny because there's an entire industry for sending ashes to the moon as well. There's a
Celestis.
Celestis, thank you, Mike. Yeah. they'll actually send your ashes up to the moon. But it's less of a, hey, you get 1 gram, and more like you are the main payload, our main payload, their secondary payload on a rocket. But, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's interesting, and I think it's cute, and I wish them all the luck, and I wouldn't mind, like I said, helping them along, because I appreciate that kind of enthusiasm for such a project.
And they know this stuff, right? One of them is one of the founders is one of the co-founders of Copenhagen Suborbitals, and they make rockets. They know how to do this stuff on the cheap. So, they know how to do this.
Yeah, if they get the money that they are asking for, it does sound like there's a high probability of them being able to fulfill this project.
Sure.
And that's awesome. And their patch is kind of cool, and all of those things. It just does not speak to me personally, pretty much at all.
Space Mike, what's your opinion on the project?
Well, one thing that does kind of concern me about this is I think that the whole thing isn't necessarily the payload. For me, I'm also not inspired by the payload. Like, just a small little impactor like that doesn't, I don't know. But the rocket itself, and especially that upper stage, is I think what they are doing this for is to have that capability so that they can start marketing that rocket for other things. And, the thing that concerns me, though, is that, these are people that came from Copenhagen Suborbitals. So what I'm wondering is this like a division of camp? Like, was there some sort of disagreements, and they're like, all right, well, we're going to go and do our own, Moonspike thing? Or is this like an extension of Copenhagen Suborbitals? Is this like somehow related to all of their stuff, and whatever upgrades and technology they do for this particular rocket, is that going to carry over to projects that Copenhagen Suborbitals is working on? So, I'd really like to talk to the people behind Moonspike and, understand what that relationship is. And depending on what that relationship is, this might be an additional project that would create some sort of synergy. And honestly, this might just be an experiment by the Copenhagen Suborbital guys to see if they could raise the money to do something like this. And if this is successful, then we might start seeing a lot of really cool stuff from both companies. So I definitely want to talk to the people behind this to get the inside scoop on what's going on here. But I like the idea, and I definitely like a lot of the information that they have here about how they're going to build this rocket, and especially on the upper stage there. So I think that this is really interesting, and I don't want to commit to donating a bunch of money, but I'm definitely going to donate some, and I'm going to follow this to see how this goes. Because if this is successful, it could raise a lot of different possibilities. If this company did another round of funding, I wonder how fast this could be put together, and whether or not any of the teams competing in the Google Lunar X Prize could take advantage of that. I know it wouldn't be in time for the whole cutoff right now, but if any of them want to continue beyond the Google Lunar X Prize, this might be another way to do that in a very, very small way, for small payloads. But I think it's really interesting. So that's my opinion so far until I know more information.
All right, and how about you, Dutta? What's your opinion? Throw out to the control room. I warned you in the chat room. Throw out to the control room. What do you think?
Buttons and pushy things. So we're sending a spike to the moon?
We're sending a spike to the moon.
Cool. Do it. If you can get funding for it. I agree with what Mike says. If you can get funding for this, and then your task is successful, then maybe there's a possibility that we could fund other larger, more important human-related things. It's an interesting experiment, I think. Maybe $1 million isn't so hard to come by. It's a good opportunity for them to kind of feel the waters and see what they can get done, I guess.
Yeah, so a couple things have been brought up is, the kind of the relationship between them and Copenhagen is suborbitals. As far as I know, there is no relationship there. It's just one of the co-founders of Copenhagen happens to also be doing this, but there isn't necessarily, it's not like Copenhagen Suborbitals is working on this project, so kind of set that record straight. Yeah, maybe we should bring someone on the show to talk about what they're doing. at this stage more, I'm just interested in what you guys think as a community. What do you think of a project like this? I had been talking in the past when we've been mentioning a.
Yeah. Did anybody ask you what you thought about this particular project?
No, I had talked about. So in the past we've been talking.
Hey Benny, what do you think about this project?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So in the past we talked about. Crowdfunding a space program and how the timing wasn't right. Because the amount of money necessary to do that and to do it in a meaningful way just wasn't quite there in the crowdfunding area yet. Like you haven't quite figured out the whole thing.
Sure.
And they even mentioned on the website, $1 million is what they're trying to raise, but it is not enough to do this whole project. There will be additional sponsors, additional things that will be necessary to make this go. So that's cool. And I'm always excited for more space programs to be out there. And I will be contributing to this Kickstarter campaign because I do want to see them succeed. However, I'm in your boat. I don't care. They're sending a spike to the moon. That's great. Hopefully it inspires someone. And that's why I'll back it, because maybe someone who wasn't a space geek before will be inspired by this. But I think to the existing, and getting more people excited about space is a good thing, because the more people you can get excited about space, the more potential money you can get flowing into the space industry, and maybe the more money NASA gets. Maybe the more money that you give in Rocket Labs or Firefly Space Systems. These smaller companies might, Maston Space Systems. I would say Armadillo Aerospace, but they're gone now. So. Sad tear. So, all ships rise with the tide kind of mentality. So I'm excited for it in that regard, but I don't think it's a very inspired mission, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's nothing there that makes me go, oh, wow, that's awesome. We've done the craters in the moon before. We've done the whole trying to send DNA. You can for free send, NASA will, on on the lunar crater, what was it? The lunar, where did Bax's message go?
The Lunar Crater Observation and Sensing Satellite.
That thing.
Thank you.
When NASA sent it to the moon, if I remember right, on that one, you could actually submit your name and your information, this little EEPROM that they slammed into the moon. I didn't even do that because, like you said, I don't care, right? I'm excited about space stuff, but I don't need my name on an EEPROM on the moon. That doesn't do anything for me. Now, putting me on the moon, putting payloads on the moon, getting rovers on the moon, being able to do useful things on the moon where we're doing experiments and we're learning things and we're getting data back. That's pretty cool. One thing I do think is exciting, actually the number one thing I think is exciting about this mission is the live imagery that will be coming back from the impactor, or at least from the third stage, the last stage. That I think is pretty cool. And I think that could inspire some people. And as long as this mission inspires people, I think it's all right. But if it's just kind of a Kickstarter because we got a bunch of guys who want to build yet another rocket, we've got the Electron rocket. It's coming online. We've got the Firefly rocket, Alpha, I think it's Alpha. It's coming online. We had the Falcon 1. It was there. There just isn't, at this point, a huge demand for these small launchers like that. And one could argue, well, that's because we don't have small launchers for the small sat market.
Well, no. I mean, see, this is where I disagree with you ever so slightly. I believe that there is a market, or at least a market is coming online for a smaller launch vehicle. Previously, like the Falcon 1, much like the Launcher 1 that Virgin Galactic is building.
Sure. Oh yeah, Launcher 1. There's another small launch vehicle.
Yeah. So
I don't see why we need a fourth small.
Well, the thing is that this. Again, it's a Kickstarter project, so it's not like they're saying, well, we want to build the next NASA out of small launch vehicles.
Sure.
They are trying to do this one particular thing. Whether or not they're going to do this one particular thing and then continue to do this or similar things with this particular vehicle, or that's where all the ambiguity is, right? Like, what are they going to do with this vehicle? Are they going to make more of this vehicle? Once they make more of them, what are they going to do with those? Because you can only spike the moon so many times. Because really, who's going to care after you do it once? All of those things.
It's missing a human factor here. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's missing an element of excitement.
Thank you. Vax Hedrum in the chat room says there are 22 small launchers in development.
22. Yeah. So we don't need another rocket.
We really don't.
So, but they want to build a rocket, and that's really what this comes down to.
That's great, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I totally appreciate having a space hobby, I guess, is what it comes down
to. So Vax
to.
says, no, L-Cross did not allow people to submit their names, but there was, I thought it was L-Cross, but there have been those programs from NASA. I don't remember their names, but these have been things that you've been able to do in the past. Maybe not L-Cross, but certainly
your name
other.
to Mars, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, certainly other missions. It's just, and that's neat and that's fun, but that's also free, but there needs to be something more here. Maybe I'm just not getting it, but it feels like it's missing a human element. That is my opinion. What's your opinion? The community of tomorrow, what do you think? Will you be, I'll be funding it. I think it's missing a human element, but I also think it could do good. And so I'll put my money behind it because of that. But what do you, as the community of tomorrow, think? Do you think, are you going to fund it? Do you think it's going to do good? Do you think it will bring value to the space community? Or is it like some hobbyists who want to build a rocket and they're looking for Kickstarter to help pay for that? So let us know what you think. Leave your comments on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, wherever you want. Speaking of comments, this is my segue. We're going to take a quick break. Oh, space. No. You raised your hand.
You raised your hand.
You raised your hand.
That's what happens.
We've committed to it at this point. Ready, go.
A small launcher to the moon like this that might be inspiring for us would be to send some Tomorrow swag up there. How cool would it be to have, a Tomorrow pin or a Tomorrow t-shirt on the moon, and we can see that and just be like, yep, we're everywhere, even on the moon.
It would be cool to say that we're everywhere, even on the moon, but remember, they're talking about grams of payload, right? So you can't send a Tomorrow pin. You can't send stuff like that.
Well, and they don't exist either. So
well, we have the communicator
that's
button
kind of
thingy.
An issue. So.
I mean, I guess that would be kind of cool, but the planetary.
That definitely wouldn't be for this project. It would be on like a Moon Express or an Astrobotic secondary payload, which is what Celestis has already contracted with. They're contracted with those two companies to do that. So
what I think
it would have to be for something with a larger lander.
What's cooler of an idea is on the Moon Express, we should buy advertising and have the Tomorrow logo painted on the side of the lander, and then if the lander can swing around and take a selfie, you'd have a shot of the lander with our logo on the moon. That would be cool. But that's unique to like us as a community. Like the community would be like, oh my God, that's so awesome. But mere mortals would not care, right? So, I mean, that'd be...
I don't know, it's a pretty kick-ass logo.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, comments from our last show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. The chat room is saying a Tomorrow drone on the moon would be even better, or a Tomorrow rover. I would argue doing the show live from the moon is the ultimate dream, right? Have the Earth kind of permanently in the background over there. You got to find just the right spot to figure out how to make that all line up. But yeah, it'll just kind of hang there and drift a little bit. That'd be just an epic, epic shot. Speaking of epic, epic people, I'd like to thank all. No, it mostly works. Mostly works.
Almost.
I'd like to thank all of the patrons of tomorrow who have helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. Easy for me to say. These are the Patreon Plus subscribers. These are people who've contributed $2.50 or more to this specific episode, and they will get access to After Dark as soon as it's available. And allow me to say that last week's After Dark is why we record those shows. Oh my goodness, if you are a Patreon Plus or above subscriber, allow me to highly recommend going back and watching last week's After Dark episode. Shenanigans occurred. It was amazing. For everyone else, that episode will be available in 3 weeks, and this week's episode will be available in about 4 weeks or so. Oh, but there's more. Because we are a crowdfunded show and we think we want to be as inclusive as possible, you can contribute as little as 1 penny to this episode, and that is enough to get your name in the show. So from 1 penny to $2.49. That are the list of people sitting right here. And I would like to point out, some of the people in this list are actually eligible for a higher reward level. I noticed that while going through the Excel document. You just make sure that if you have changed your pledge, you change your reward level. Because if you change, let's say you go from 1 penny to $10 per episode, like all at once, you'll be spending $10, but unless you change the reward in Patreon, it still looks like 1 penny to me. So log back into Patreon, change your password first, and then check and make sure that your reward level is as high as it can be, or that you're satisfied with your reward level. So thank you to all of the patrons who have made this show happen. You can find out more information over at patreon.com/TMRO. And as another reminder, go change your Patreon password, and anywhere you use that password, change it there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started from comments from last week's show. First up from Wilby.
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 This one comes off of YouTube. It says, I feel like I should be scolding y'all for the decreased professionalism. What are new viewers going to think? But it's making me laugh, so I guess you're doing something right.
You know, I hope the new viewers enjoyed it. Yeah, overwhelmingly, last week's comments were, this was fun. I think there was only one person who said that got old really quick. But, you know, you can't make everyone happy.
But it's not a shtick, I promise.
It was not a shtick. It wasn't a thing. It really was. That show just derailed itself over and over again. I don't know what happened. This show was much better. You know, we like to have fun in this show. You go around and you watch all these video podcasts from NASA and from ESA and everywhere else. They're so serious. And they kind of have to be, right? I mean, that's their job. But where do you go to have fun with space? Hopefully you come here. This is your fun space port. I don't know. Next up.
Did you see, really quickly, that you were talking about ESA and NASA being a little bit more professional, I suppose?
Stick up, buddy?
Yeah, I think European Space Agency tweeted out a picture of one of their front gates, and just outside of their front gates, there's a, like, 8-bit alien that says something about, like, welcome to space. But it's right outside their gate. It's really cute.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, I stand corrected. By an 8-bit alien.
Okay.
All right, next up.
Also off of YouTube, this one comes from Eric Unger. Or Younger, I suppose, possibly. We should make a drinking game. Take a sip of beer every time Mike says, so...
How many drinking games do we have at this point?
I don't know, but everyone is either an alcoholic or dead at this point.
Yeah, I know there's one drinking game. Every time I touch my mug but don't do anything with it, like I just, or I'll like pick it up and then put it back down, or touch it, or twist it. That apparently was a drinking game for a while.
For a long time, it was how many minutes until Carrie-Anne says something on the show?
Yep, that was a drinking game. Like, or every time Carrie-Anne said something, you had to take a shot. That was a good one. And now we've got, which one? This is the, every time Mike says so, you take a shot. So yeah, exactly. There you go. There's another shot. You're welcome, Internet. Yeah.
Every time I connect the dots for you, you get to take a shot.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Someone should list off in the YouTube comments or on Reddit all the different drinking games that we've created, because we've been doing this show for 8 seasons.
Not that we created. We didn't create. We did not create. Be very clear about that.
We as a community. Oh yes, we do not condone doing any of these drinking games because I'm afraid of alcohol poisoning. But I'm curious as to what the community created, all the different games the community has created over the years, as many as people can remember. I think
Rick-Ann says, drinking game, every time Carrie-Anne says, in every way, shape, or form. In every way, shape, or form, if that makes any sense. Fascinating.
Awesome.
I can't speak.
Awesome. I can't speak.
I love you, Carrie-Anne.
That's at least once per show.
Yeah. Well, if I didn't have a camera staring me down,
all the tomorrow-isms. The tomorrow-isms are fun. All right, moving along.
Drinking game for bad segues.
Oh no, that's like between every news story. All right, next up. Hit the buttons, Dada.
Off of YouTube, this one comes from Same Basic Riff. Also, I bet 3 Falcon Heavy launches still cost less than 1 Space Launch System launch, LOL, especially if they upgrade the Heavy to be reusable. A quote-unquote jobs program is clearly useless when 10 times the jobs could be created giving NASA's budget away in specific tight contracts to achieve the same goals.
So generally, I mean, there are things to remember. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to use 3 Falcon Heavies to launch the same amount of usable mass as the Space Launch System. However, that means that you have to break your payload potentially up into 3 segments, which could potentially make it far more complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it all depends on what your mission plan looks like. And the more you can lift at once, generally the better. The more you can cram into one vehicle, the larger you can make your spacecraft, the larger you can make your HAB module, the more you can bring up and don't have to assemble in space. We have proven with the International Space Station that we can do assembly in space. We've also proven that it is freakishly expensive to do assembly in space. So what is more expensive? Assembling in space an entire Mars transportation system, or assembling a much larger system here on Earth that costs a lot to launch every time, but then you can bring more payload up to space. I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm just posing the question. I'll let you, Internet, answer that. And, you know, all government agency or all government programs are jobs programs at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's not a fair statement.
No.
I retract that statement. So never mind. We'll just go ahead and move on.
Okay.
I hereby retract.
Yay! This one comes also.
I could edit that out, but I'm not going to.
Nope. From YouTube, from T1 John. Goodness. At 36 minutes. I was corrected on this on Slashdot just the other day.
That's still around?
I guess so.
Wow.
Actually, a Delta IV Heavy can loft a BA-330 today, but why bother when the only quote-unquote open market rides to low Earth orbit cost $70 million per seat with the Russians? Bigelow is just waiting for SpaceX Dragon V2 to get man-rated, bringing the cost down to where his business case is viable.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think this is in comments. 36 minutes into last week's episode, we were talking about how Bigelow is waiting for someone to create a vehicle large enough to bring his larger space stations up to orbit. He's already got the small one that went up there.
The inflatable.
Yeah. And yeah, that actually, we may have rockets today that can bring it up. That's a valid point. I actually did not look at the weight or the lift. There you go, there's a shot. Lift requirements of the BA-330. But even if you can do it, you're absolutely right. How do you get humans to it, right? In a cost-effective way? Probably waiting for Crew Dragon, Orion, maybe not, but the CST-100 Starliner. CST-100 Starliner is its full name, right? Or is it Starliner? No, CST-100 Starliner. Ugh. Oi! The CST-100 Starliner might be another good option. Other capsules will hopefully be built that can get humans to a low Earth orbit destination that could have the the Bigelow 330
Bigelow Aerospace
330 space station floating up there, which would be kind of cool.
That'd
a
be
first
awesome.
private space station inhabited by humans. I think that'd be pretty freaking awesome. All right, and finally,
this one comes from Mini Stoge.
Oh yeah, they brought. I'm sorry, Dream Chasers, another potential.
Oh yeah, good call. Lisa Stojanowski, or Lisa Stoge off of Twitter,
Miniature Stooge,
says, learning about Space Launch System at Space Camp, although nothing more than tomorrow already taught me, but still cool.
Yeah, the moral of the story is tomorrow is cooler than Space Camp. Just remember that, kids. Tomorrow, that's the moral of, that's my takeaway. That's my takeaway. That's my takeaway. That's what she meant. That's totally what she meant, and I'm not going to post any corrections she may have. Not going to post any corrections she may have. All right, that is our show for this week. I'd like to everyone thank.
Yep, me too.
I'd like to thank everyone. You want to take us out? I always take us out.
No.
Mike, you want to take us out?
And this for tomorrow this week, and we will see you guys next time. I don't remember what you guys say.
Yeah, see, exactly. Nobody ever listens to you when you talk.
All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for watching. We'll see you next week after Dark's up next. I hate you all. Oh, da-da!